Anyway, today's topic is about some of those video games that we have played in our past that have uh not rubbed us the right way, so to speak. This isn't necessarily to talk about a game like a fighting game where like you're fighting someone else and you don't know the frame data or whatever and you're like, no, I tech that grab. No, you didn't. You didn't tech that grab.
I
Um
don't know what you mean.
in
It's
in fi-
fighting
so
game community stuff.
in fighting games, when you grab somebody, the defense to get out of a grapple for somebody is to also press the same buttons to grapple, so they cancel out, so they push back. That's known as teching a grab.
Learn thing today.
But we're not talking about those. We're talking about like a video game ending or maybe a boss mechanic in an MMO. Something to that effect. We'll start with Haley because I know she's raring to talk about that.
And she hasn't been here,
Also,
so
Hey, it's AnxietyLasagna. I goofed and had the wrong microphone picked for the first part of this episode. The issue does get resolved later, but I need to re-record what I was talking about for the first part of this episode, which was the ending of Borderlands 1. So if you don't want to be spoiled for the first Borderlands game, go ahead and skip ahead to the timestamp I'll have added in the comments for you, where we finished talking about spoilers. So, spoiler warning in 3, 2, 1. Okay, so I don't know if anyone else is super frustrated by how Borderlands 1 ended, because they spend the entire game hyping up finding the vault. Like, that's the whole reason whatever character you choose is on Pandora. And for me, at least, the way I played the game solo, leading up to the vault, like that last sort of downward climb or downward descent into where the vault entrance is, kicked my ass left, right, and sideways, up, down, forwards, backwards, anything you can imagine, got my ass kicked. It was the hardest part of the game for me until the DLCs, which is a different story entirely. I actually like the few that I've played. But they hype up this final boss with, I don't even remember what Atlas company. I think she was part of the Atlas company. They hype her up the whole game a little bit. And the vault. And when you go to the vault, the thing kills her. And you fight one giant monster. And that's the end of the game. There's no vault. There apparently has never been a vault. I'm not sure. But it was extremely disappointing that that was how that game ended. A hyped up villain that gets one-shotted outside of your control, and you don't even get to fight her until the DLCs. And there's nothing in the vault. It was just kind of, it seems to be, the game sort of sets it up as Hyperion, another arms company, sets your character up to kind of get rid of whatever this monster is so that they can access a new set of resources. Spoilers for Borderlands 2, if you haven't played Borderlands 2. There's a new resource that gets added to the game, the second one, that I think only happens because you opened the vault. There's nothing in the vault. You do get a shit whack of weapons after the end credits, which I watched those end credits, going through all 5 stages of grief, because I couldn't believe that that's how that game ended. Like, there was nothing you went in, like, you didn't even, like, find an empty vault. Like, someone had already plundered it. It was just a monster appeared. I shot the monster in the mouth. And that was it. It's completely ridiculous. It's completely unacceptable. I think at some point, Sharky, during this period of the podcast, made a comment that this is like Gearbox. This is a Gearbox thing where they hype something up and then like don't deliver on it. I could be completely wrong. Absolutely no shade, no tea about Gearbox. I don't know when the audio picks back up or how long I was talking about the game, but that was a quick summary on what you missed while I was having audio issues. I'm terribly sorry to you all and to my co-hosts for having to put up with my nonsense, and I will definitely be much more careful about choosing the correct microphone in the future. Thank you for listening, and enjoy the rest of the podcast.
Is this one better?
That one's better.
That one is.
Because I was looking, I was like, she's like getting closer to the microphone, but like the volume's not changing. So I'm like, something's.
Hi, my name's Haley, and I'm stupid at computing.
There we go.
No,
The
you're
only
not.
things I'm smart at are those pieces of paper over on the wall. Everything
There
else,
we go.
big stupid idiot.
On-screen
yeah,
troubleshooting.
Hell yeah.
Borderlands.
Borderlands.
I think it, for me, and this might just be back to like a negative experience I had with the game many years ago. I get so stressed out with it being co-op because I feel like I have to justify myself as like, I'm a worthy member of this team. So like when I would play with my husband,
You can say husband now.
I know, it's weird as shit. When I would play with him, I would try and be 5 to 10 levels ahead of him at all times so that I could just sit there and help tank while he was doing the stuff that was his level. Just so I felt like I was allowed to be participating, which is stupid. And
In your name, Anxiety.
AnxietyLasagna, that's my name. And playing it alone was more fun because I could kind of do it more methodically and like play at my own speed, which was being out leveled for everything because I'm a big scaredy baby. But got my ass beat by all the, what I'm guessing, I forget what their names actually are, but they're like the aliens that I'm sure are not aliens. They're probably like the indigenous species to Pandora. And they kicked my ass right, left, and sideways. And then when I fought the monster, I just like stood back and shot into its mouth. And then it was like, you win the game. Then you get all this loot you don't need because the game is over. And it's like, hey, do you want to play again where you start at the first mission, but we've leveled it up to your current level? And I'm like, no, because I'm just playing the game, already knowing how it ends. They're like, oh, but wait. If you play it again after you play it the second time, it's always going to be scaled to your level. You can't get ahead. And I'm like, I would rather rip my toenails out one by one than play the game in that way. So I will probably play the DLCs and never play that game again. So that was very disappointing for me. I don't know if anyone else feels that way. Welcome back to those who didn't want to be spoiled by Borderlands 1. You missed a fun little technical glitch. I probably sound better now. Hooray.
I've had this like on-off relationship with Borderlands. Like, I won't play it by choice. Like, just if I have an option of like what game do I want to play, I'll never pick Borderlands. But then there are times where it's like if I'm hanging out with friends, like if I'm hanging out with like friends for a long weekend and I have my little like travel case screen thing for my PlayStation, we'll install Borderlands and like two or three of us will play, throughout the weekend, but then I'll never touch it again. Like, it's just one of those games for me.
That really fucking got me. You're like, I'll never play this game by choice.
Because like
what is
because you pointed out because like it's like, hey, we have this replay value where everything's harder now and you get better loot, but it's like, but I've already played through the game and saw the ending, so why would I want to go through all the same stuff again? I play Destiny. I know what it's like to do the same thing over and over again each week.
Did you play Diablo 2 or Diablo 2 and all those games?
No, I didn't.
Okay, checks out.
Yeah. I mean, the closest thing I guess to trying to play something like that was I played Path of Exile like on and off. Like I'll play it for like a 10-hour like marathon and then I won't touch it for 6 months and then I'll go back and make a new character and just replay the same like 10 hours and then just not play for another 6 months.
That's like me with The Sims. Like I play The Sims like maybe twice a year, but when I play it for like 36 hours straight. And then I forget that it exists.
Yeah, it's like that for like when I finally installed Fall Guys and like I was playing Fall Guys every now and then, I would play for like 4 hours and then it's like a week would go by and then I'd pick it up for like an hour and then another like week or two will go by and I'm like, I have this game and I just like never have the urge to play it.
Did you mean every time a Steam has a sale and I'm like, I want to play that later, and I never.
Oh yeah, Steam sales where you buy games. You buy games you will play eventually.
95% of my Steam library is games I have 0 hours in.
Yeah, same. So But
And then it's Skyrim, The Sims, and like a couple of other games.
no, but it's like Borderlands and I will play it when I have somebody to play with, but I will never like sit and play it like by myself. It's just it's one of those it's just one of those games that's like it's in this weird place of like I'm uninterested, but like I will play it if other people are interested, kind of thing.
For me, I think I put this is like years and years ago. I couldn't tell you how far I got into Borderlands 2 at the time. But it felt like that game had more life to it than Borderlands 1, going from like what my memories of Borderlands 2 were to playing Borderlands 1. It feels like, and I don't know if this is just like they had a higher budget for the second one, they had like a better like writing team. Like I know Anthony Birch was one of the head writers, and I think he's a generally pretty funny guy. It just felt like that game was one, more alive, and two, prettier to look at. A lot of Borderlands 1 is just it's fucking ugly.
It's very
Like the art
brown.
style is cool, but it's very brown, which was my big critique of like Fallout New Vegas, which like I'm sorry, husband. He's a Fallout New Vegas guy. It's ugly.
I
The
mean,
It's
yeah,
difference
ugly to
between
look at.
Fallout is
the difference
just
between
it's just brown. The post apocalyptic. So
the difference between I liked New Vegas versus like Borderlands. I think is very a bland brown, the first one. But the reason it works in New Vegas is because I have been to those places that are there. It's the same thing with you in Fallout 3. Like I've been to
Yes.
those places. I've been to Camp McCarran Airport and like all those places out there. And it checks out. It still looks shitty.
Yeah, so I haven't gotten to finish Borderlands 2, so I don't know how it ends. But some of the things that I would find like I never read any of the mission shit in Borderlands 1 either. I'd be like, turn it in, give me the next one. Like, didn't read it. I feel like I read more in Borderlands 2. The characters seemed a little bit more like entertaining and engaging. So maybe they've improved and I won't be as upset with how that game ends. This is not a game ending. This is me pivoting to my next game. I say I'm probably less than 1/3 of the way through this game. Waited a very long time to play this game without spoilers, avoided spoilers for years, still have avoided spoilers, even though I feel like the spoilers that would be given to me would make very little sense because of the nature of this game. I cannot fucking stand Kingdom Hearts 3. I can't stand
That's
it.
fair.
It is a
Kingdom
movie
Kingdom
that
Hearts fans
occasionally
cannot
breaks down
stand
to a
Kingdom
video
Hearts.
game. I loved Kingdom Hearts 2. I think it's a great game. Minus the tutorial, like, love you, Roxas stands, I see you. He's a great guy to look at. The beginning of that game is exhausting. Kingdom Hearts 1, unplayable. When you go back and try to play Kingdom Hearts 1 mechanics on like with having played a video game in the last 5 years, unplayable. You adjust the camera with the fucking bumpers. What the shit were we doing in 2005? What the
Not living our
actual
best
shit?
life. Not
Not
living our
living
best
our
life.
best lives. We probably had already turned on to the darkest timeline by 2005 if we were like adjusting cameras in Kingdom Hearts 1 with bumpers.
Yeah.
But Kingdom Hearts 3, the way like Kingdom Hearts 1 may be an unplayable video game, but at least it is a fucking video game. Kingdom Hearts 3 is a movie that occasionally breaks out into a short video game sequence. It is a playable film. I had to sit through the entire plot of fucking Tangled while trying to play a video game. Like, I've seen Tangled, bitch. I don't fucking need to watch the movie I've already seen in the video game that I've paid to play. Additionally, looking at you, Nintendo and the makers of the Nintendo Switch. Why the fuck are those games cloud-based? Why the fuck are they cloud-based? Video games are on-demand games. I have this same kind of beef with like Steam and whatever fucking EA's version of Steam
Oh,
is.
I dread the day where
Origin.
Steam goes down and just every game that I have is inaccessible anymore. So
I paid money. I gave you currency for a product, and therefore I should get to access the product whenever I want. I paid money for this Bluetooth mouse. Do I have to wait until there's an internet connection to use my Bluetooth mouse? No, I do have to utilize Bluetooth, but I literally have a thing I can touch. Why does Kingdom Hearts get to tell me when I get to play it? I'm like, it's time to play some Kingdom Hearts 3, and it's like, our servers are really full. Fuck you. You don't get to play right now. Then why did I pay you like $39.99? That sounds like a you problem, not a me problem. Update, like, Kingdom Hearts is one of the most successful video game franchises in the history of forever, right? Like, it's big. It's a big fucking deal, right?
Yeah.
Why the fuck would you have inadequate servers, but then be like, you can only get this on the cloud? I'm sorry. I'm very upset.
No, continue. It's great.
I
Cloud-based
waited.
gaming. That's why Stadia failed.
I don't even know what a Stadia is.
Google thought
Exactly.
Google's like, hey
Exactly.
guys, Google's gonna make video games on demand, like from retailers through just an internet connection. You don't need like a console, you just needed Stadia and an internet connection. And it was like, wow, this is bad because the US internet structure is bullshit. So
my beef extends to Steam because I was on an airplane and I wanted to play Stardew Valley, which is, in my opinion, one of the greatest video games ever invented because it's fantastic and an idealized version of what country life should be: wholesome, cozy, and free of racism. It was like, you need to be connected to the internet to play this game. I'm like, but I have a desktop shortcut.
right there.
I downloaded a game. I had to sit there because you're like, I'm downloading this game. Why can't I play it when there's no internet?
I have definitely like backdoor accessed my video games that I've downloaded off Steam.
There's a setting you can do.
Yeah,
I
it's,
know this because I looked it up later. But you have to anticipate that you're going to play your games without the internet. And I'm
Yep.
like, I'm sorry. I paid you US currency in order to play this game. I
That was the
own
first
it.
mistake.
you
I own
all
it.
pay for games.
Public service announcement. The Without Context podcast does not give a seal of approval to piracy, or whatever those other crimes are associated with illegally downloading things. You wouldn't illegally download a pizza, so don't illegally download a
You
video
wouldn't-
game.
You wouldn't 3D
This
print
has
a
been a
car.
public service announcement. I mean,
It's like-
I'm no.
I just love that now. It's just like,
Crime is bad.
you wouldn't 3D print a car, but I could now though. So
I said download. I didn't say anything about
that's
3D
just it's made that whole meme obsolete. It's like, you wouldn't download a car, and it's like, with 3D printing I can though. So I can
Yeah.
I can
Oh, that's
download
funny.
anything I want now with a 3D printer.
Looping back, Kingdom Hearts 3. I don't know off the top of my head this span of time that passed between Kingdom Hearts 2 and Kingdom Hearts 3.
11 years?
Too long. Too long.
Like
for
the period of time in real life or the period of time in game?
Period of time in my life.
I think
How
11.
many
Okay.
years
I think
in
11
real
About 11
life?
years.
Yeah.
I couldn't give a shit how much time passed for Sora. Like, he's not real. I'm,
That's
to my
fair.
knowledge, real.
Kingdom Hearts
Um,
2:05.
I think the most damning thing about Kingdom Hearts 3 is whatever bullshit they went through, there's another one coming out.
No. The most damning thing is they had, by estimation, 11 years to produce a video game. And then what we got was 11 years of development. I know there was other games that got released in that time. I See You Birth by Sleep. I See You Dream Drop Distance. I See You Weird mobile game that you literally have to know the plot of a fucking
14.
mobile game to understand
14
a
years,
console
Jesus.
Yeah, 14
game.
years.
14 years. You could have a whole child and they reach high school age.
There are
between,
kids
like-
who are freshmen in high school that were their gestation and growth is the entire development cycle of Kingdom Hearts 3.
And then that's what we got. I've played 3 worlds in that game. And now it won't let me continue because the servers are always shitty. And what I got, well, I guess 4 if you count the tutorial world, which at least the tutorial was engaging in this game. I will give it that. I didn't feel like I was necessarily playing a tutorial when I was playing the tutorial. It didn't insult my intelligence in that way. Little did I know that part would be coming later. I've played the Tangled world and the Toy Story world and the Hercules world, so 3 worlds. The most fun I've had was when I get to hop into this overpowered fucking robot and beat the shit out of everyone around me. And that's the only time I've had fun since I picked up the game. But, well, first of all, I fucked up my own controls and therefore
Sure.
could not fly a gummy ship to save my life. But figured out if you just fly high enough, you can skip everything and just get to your destination.
Yeah.
Big
But
brain.
then it even takes away that fun from you by being like, you have to do this mandatory boss in your fucking gummy ship. I'm like, first of all, how have we not figured out that one of the worst parts of this game
Is the gummy ship.
is the gummy ship? It goes the general plot, the gummy ship, the controls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so weird because like we can't talk about a bad ending to Kingdom Hearts because it's not over. They keep saying, "Hey, we finished this, but it's not over yet." Because hey, look, Kingdom Hearts 4 now. It's still Sora. The story's not over yet.
My favorite thing that I've ever been told about Kingdom Hearts, my dear friend Willis, shout out Willis, love you to death. He was telling me when Kingdom Hearts 3 came out, like, oh, it's the end of the Darkseeker trilogy saga and the Sea Salt Ice Cream trio saga. And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about?
the
what
fucking
the fuck is a Darkseeker trio? What the fuck are you talking about?
It's so weird now because it's
the
like
Jesse Eisenberg. What the fuck are you talking about? Fuck you.
it's just it's so crazy because it's like, hey, we're out of the evil wizard turning people into heartless like story, and the trio of like Axel and Roxas and them, like we're out of that story, and then it's like Trailer for Kingdom Hearts 4 drops, it's Sora fighting a heartless, and it's like, so we're not though. So what you're telling me is
so that
we're
was a
not.
fucking lie.
Yeah, the results are in. That was
That
a
was a
fucking
lie.
lie. No. We started that shit in Kingdom Hearts too. I feel like we're gonna end up having to title this episode like Haley shits
bitches
on
about
two
Kingdom
We
Hearts.
already had a Kingdom Hearts
specific-
episode, right?
I
No,
don't think
we've
so.
gotten very close to it.
We've gotten close to it. I think this calls it whatever. We might get extra content out of this episode because I could talk about my love-hate relationship with that fucking video game saga.
We'll do now because we have gripes about games too.
Okay, my final point, and then I'll shut the fuck up until our Kingdom Hearts episode. The first game, they're like, hey, when you lock the hearts of these worlds, they're forever safe from Heartless. And so when you lock the world, my dumb ass is like, cool, I can just walk out of here because Heartless can't come to this world anymore. And yet they still show up.
That's
and
a
then
lie.
you go to these same worlds in the second game. And they're like, uh-oh, that thing we said was the solution to your problem last game isn't the solution to your problem anymore. And I'm like,
It's like, Mickey, I don't
You
know what
coulda
the.
just
I don't think you
picked
know
new
what you're talking
worlds.
about.
you could have just kept that same mechanic. And they're like, no, there's got to be nobodies now. And then there's those like other things from like Dream Drop Distance that were like cute and have stars on them or something. I don't know. Kingdom Hearts, you're a fucking disaster. I love you, get better.
Kingdom Hearts was like
I'm done.
evil. Kingdom Hearts started like, oh, it's the evil in the hearts of men, and then Kingdom Hearts 2 on is like, here's a shadowy cloaked organization. It's like,
This is about the darkness in our hearts made manifest. Kingdom Hearts 2 said, yeah, but what happens to the body?
and it's just like, well, they become a new
What if
person.
we made
They
empty
become a new-
corpses?
They become a new
hot?
person, and we rearrange the letters in their name, and we slap an X into it because we're cool.
I also, okay, last thing I swear to God. I love that they came up with all these very cool names for people in Organization 13. And then they had to go, whoa, what were their
real
names
names?
before we added an X to it? And they're like complete, utter nonsense. All right, I'm done. Someone else talk before I keep shit talking Kingdom Hearts.
I'll go next.
Go,
Just
All
to
right.
go, go, go.
hold you. Ironically, still tangentially related to Haley.
God damn
Uh,
it.
because in all of my travels as the lone wanderer and going in there and doing all of the stuff you do in that game, whether or not you blow up Megaton, whether or not you shoot that one guy at the top of his tower,
Tenpenny eat dicks.
yeah, for real. And all the other stuff you do in that game, um, the one bullshit part is the ending where it's like, no, you have to die.
Yeah.
Or you have to die, or Liam Neeson has to die. One of you has to die.
Hold the phone.
The dad's
You
voice bullying
cannot
this.
have your dad die in Fallout 3?
You guys can do stuff in Fallout 3 instead of get lost. This is like,
It's like that
No, I
meme
definitely
from
got
that
lost.
one Jason Bateman film just happened. I'm getting 1,000! You guys are getting paid.
I just like
Unless
every time I install Fallout 3, I just get lost. So
unless I am misremembering Fallout 3, which is possible. As I recall, the ending was one of you dying. Go for it.
My recollection is your dad dies first, and there's
Uh-huh.
nothing you can do about it, because I reloaded that bitch over and over and over. And then you have to figure out how to do something else,
Mhm.
and then you sacrifice yourself in the end. At least that's
Okay.
how I played it with perfect karma.
I,
But
I, I
to
do
your
remember
point,
there was something where it's like either you die or you get the bad ending.
yeah, there's only you either sacrifice yourself in order. Hi, we're talking about Fallout 3. Spoilers for Fallout 3, even though that game's older than dirt. You can either sacrifice yourself if you align with the Brotherhood of Steel, who's the good guys in that game, which is apparently not a thing that happens in any other Fallout game up until
Nope.
then. To turn on the Jefferson Memorial Water Filtration Purification Project
Mhm.
to give clean, unirradiated water to the Capital Wasteland, or you can side with what are they called? President Eden's fucking
The Enclave.
the Enclave, the shitlords.
Yeah.
And they're like, you can put in the virus into the water that kills anything that's been mutated by radiation. So you would just like commit a spicy genocide.
Spicy genocide.
And you get to pick one of those two endings. So you either die or you commit a nice spicy genocide.
what was the is the meme I shared in the Discord? It's just radiation is just spicy air.
Yeah.
I shared that. I shared that
I
shit like
think-
last night.
I think the other thing about it is that after that, regardless of what ending you pick, you still got DLC. So you're still alive. You somehow fucking live, and they don't talk about how it happens.
we're just gonna
they
bypass
let
that.
you do the ending. So you save before you start the ending sequence, and you
Uh-huh.
can't stop during the ending sequence, which is annoying. So no matter they do the same thing in Breath of the Wild, where you can like go through the whole ending sequence, but when you reload your game, you
It's just
haven't
before
done
you
that
start that
ending
part, yeah.
sequence, which is how I think they justify it. But yeah, that's a stupid mechanic too. Like, let me win the game. Come up with an ending that doesn't kill the character so that there's like a replay value other than like, oh, you still have this main quest line hanging over your
That-
head.
And I like how New Vegas and 4, or 4 did a little bit. New Vegas 4 and so on. I like how they've definitely learned their fucking lesson, because the one thing about Fallout was always that you have multiple endings. Some of them are pretty like gray, in a gray area as far as morality goes. Most of them some of them are fucking hilarious. But you don't get any of that in 3. You get poison the well or die.
Yep.
And that fucking sucks.
Mhm.
And that was my gripe with Fallout 3 the whole time playing it.
Yeah, and they sort of railroad you into one of those endings depending on how you choose to play the karma system.
Mhm.
Because like the game touts itself and being like, we have a morality system, but it's and I don't know if this is just me not understanding video games, but like they decide like which faction is good and which faction is bad,
Mhm.
even though like you could look at either side and understand where each side's coming from, but they automatically associate the Enclave with bad and the Brotherhood of Steel with good. And they're like, if anytime you help the Brotherhood of Steel, you get good karma, and anytime you help the Enclave, it's bad karma. Which I think is dumb. Just pick a faction and there shouldn't be a morality attached to a faction.
Damn you, black-white morality systems.
Yeah, that's another one of those things that is like a black-white morality system. I like the individual karmas for individual groups. So like if you do shitty by a group, then they know. But if you do good by them, then they also know. And unless they're directly in conflict with another group, you'll never get that cross contamination.
They did that in New Vegas, right?
Yes, they did it in New Vegas. They kind of did that in 4. But yeah, that was my decidedly more concise gripe about my game.
Sorry.
You're good. We love it.
I had 2 weeks of feral.
Yeah, Haley was
So I'm gonna,
away from everything for 2 weeks, so
I was dealing with the final preparations for a wedding, family obligations after said wedding, exactly 1 full day with my new spouse before he had to go back to the military.
Oh, you guys are also watching this episode on Friday. Hopefully somebody put it out on time because I will not be at my computer for the whole weekend because I'll be at a wedding.
I will probably have done it. Don't
Dude,
worry.
I went to.
It's literally just flipping a switch on YouTube.
So
I
went
think I got it.
to my nephew's birthday yesterday, and
Mhm.
they were talking to my soon-to-be sister-in-law about the wedding, and like she was saying, like, you know, there's still stuff that she has to get, like she still has to like pick up like the cupcakes for the wedding. They're not doing like a cake or anything, but my mom and my stepmom were both like, what do you mean you haven't picked out your cupcakes yet? It's not even their wedding to plan. So it's like,
That sounds
could be a
oddly
whole
familiar.
episode. That could be a whole episode of me
I'm
just
just like,
bitching about how stupid in capitalism, or how capitalism
well,
is
no,
able to
it wasn't the
monetize
capitalism
feeling
part.
of
It was
love.
like, you two are not planning or responsible for this wedding. Stop freaking out about it.
Were the people you're talking to identify as women's?
Yes, they're
There
the
you
mothers of the
go.
family.
There you go.
But it's like,
Anyway,
you're not the ones planning it. Stop freaking out. It's
before we get too deep, I'm gonna take my hoodie off, and I apologize.
Show us your
one
pink
more
hair.
time. It's terrible. I'm so roasty toasty in this hood, but I have to.
I like the joke last night. Haley's like, I'm gonna spontaneously dye my hair pink, and then it's like after doing so, it's like I regret everything I have done. It looks good.
Don't.
I do like it though.
You need a little bit of
legitimately.
Haley. You need a little bit of chaos in your life.
No, this whole process has taught me. It looks passable in this lighting. In real life, it is so dark pink that I'm having
We'll
like
have
heart
you,
palpitations every time I look at it.
We'll have you talk to Sarah about dyeing your hair pink because she does it a lot. So
No, never doing this again. This is too scary.
Cool,
Anyway,
is it time?
well,
Cool.
next
Is it
video
time
game
for me
gripe.
to gripe about Mass Effect 3 for half an hour?
Yes,
Right,
yes, it
right,
is.
right,
I'm
right.
right there with you, buddy. I'm in them trenches.
So yeah, 'cause we're in the trenches for this because to earn the bullshit ending of a video game that we got, we had to suffer first.
Mhm.
When it originally came out,
Spoilers for Mass Effect 3.
Mass Effect 1 original, because they apparently changed it for the Legendary Edition that came out, so they made it more like Mass Effect 2, which is perfect because that's actually feels like a video game. Mass Effect 1, playing the game is the most miserable experience of my life.
Did not age well at all.
It's a BioWare game, so it feels like their Star Wars game, the Knights of the Old Republic, and it feels terrible to play. It is, and the thing is, like, because these games are RPGs and they're so long and everything, it is a chore to get through the original Mass Effect 1. But you start setting the stage of, you know, your character relations, you start setting some story threads, like little side stories into motion. So when you get through that ordeal, you get to Mass Effect 2, which actually feels like a video game. It's good combat, a good like whole control setup. It actually feels like they're like, okay, we're not going to do Mass Effect 1 again. We're actually going to make this feel like a shooter. So it's like, okay, cool. And best game of the 4. And I'm going to talk about Andromeda. I'm going to talk about that game.
Oh no.
But so Mass Effect 2, it's like, okay, cool. This is perfect. I got through 1. All of my story stuff is continuing. I get all this stuff. I get all this like new cool stuff. I get new characters on my squad. I get this whole new story. And it builds the story to where Mass Effect 3 takes off. Where Mass Effect 3, 99% of the game is great. It plays like Mass Effect 2. You're going through the galaxy. You're like, okay, cool. This out of the galaxy fleet of like robotic sentient ships are starting to destroy everything like they do every 100,000 years or so and kind of reset the galaxy. So it's like you're going from planet to planet, you're trying to find out how to stop them, you're saving your squad mates' home planets and all that stuff. And then it comes back to Earth, where it's like, all right, we're going to launch our final assault right now. And then they give you, out of every choice you've made in this game, out of every side story, out of every supporting little side character plot line, out of everything you've done with your squad and all the story so far, pick a color. You can pick red, blue, or green. And it's like, okay, so I can either destroy all the Reapers, which are the ships. I can control them, which will kill Shepard, but also have his consciousness basically controlling them. Or synthesis, where every organic being will kind of be transformed to also be synthetic to a degree. So it's kind of like half and half. So it's like, okay, cool. So you're not purely organic beings, so we don't have to destroy the galaxy anymore. So now we have all this knowledge from like countless civilizations before you all to pass on to you. So that's technically the good ending.
And you just get that by randomly picking a color.
Yes.
Yep.
What color is it?
It's either red, blue, or green.
No, I want to know specifically which
red,
color it is, because I know
red
what
is
color
destroy. Red is destroy, blue is control, and green is synthesis. But the thing is, they had all of these story elements going in, and the thing is, like, none of them matter because once you get to the beam that takes you up to where you need to go, you're given a cutscene, a conversation, and then you pick your choice.
Then you get another cutscene.
There's no final boss. There's no, like, real goodbye. The last enemy in the game is a common enemy who pops out behind, like, cover because you got hit by a laser, so you're like your armor's torn up, you're like staggering to this beam as like a last ditch effort. A normal enemy comes out around the corner, you shoot him, you get into the beam, and that's the last enemy you fight in the game. They did a extended cut when they re-released it for the first time. Where it's like, okay, we'll add a little more context to this ending. But they didn't really change it. It's still the same 3 options. Apparently there is a 4th option. I forget what that is, but it doesn't actually, like, it doesn't change the feeling of how that game ends. Because it's like, I have worked through so many hours through an ordeal of a first game and through bangers of 2 and 3 to get pick a color in a game where all of your choices up to here have mattered. And I'm just like, so we don't destroy the head honcho who's been taunting us for 2 games. We don't, have this, like, what Mass Effect 2 did, where we have this long segmented, choose your squad, who do you send to this area, kind of like squad breakdown of like a suicide mission. It's just, you go up onto a light and then you pick a color. At the end of the final game in the trilogy.
So you describing this to me, I looked up on my phone.
Yes.
The only game I could think of that's comparable with that ending in terms of like what you need to do in order to accomplish the end of the game. And it was it's a game it's a classic. It is a modern classic. It's called My Friend Peppa Pig. And the way you win My Friend Peppa Pig is to just be a good friend to Peppa, the world's worst pig, and go with Peppa to Potato City. and you get the final trophy and you win the game. My friend Peppa Pig is for preschoolers. Mass Effect 3, I'm sure, is what, rated M for mature?
Yeah.
And they both, the ending of that game requires about as much skill as my friend Peppa Pig.
So what gets me is like, even on the Legendary Edition, they didn't bother changing anything. It's still that same ending. So it's like, you replay
They fucking made a choice and they stuck to it.
They did. And it's just like, okay, so it ends kind of on a flat note because it's like, well, there wasn't even like an end boss. Like, it was just a mission that we went through to get to here, and then we made a choice. There wasn't even like a final boss fight. Like, there wasn't like some heroic, like, last like run to whatever you have to get to, like 2 did. It was just, it was the most like, you're reaching this high point because you're like, we're going to do it. We're going to destroy all of them. We're launching this assault on Earth to take it back and all that. And then it's just like, pick a color, boys. It's like, excuse me?
For context, Mass Effect 3 came out in 2010. The Legendary Edition came out in 2021.
Yeah, it came out last year.
They had over 10 years.
They
had over 10 years, and they stuck to that shit.
When I tell people...
There's another...
Yeah, there's another game, and I'll get to that in a second. When I tell people who want to play Mass Effect, I start off, if they're playing the original games, they're not playing the Legendary, which I will always recommend the Legendary one right now because it saves me half of this statement. You will hate the beginning and end of Mass Effect.
Yep.
But everything in the middle you will love.
Everything from 2 to like the last 20 minutes of 3.
Yes. Like, if you're playing the Legendary Edition, I'm pretty sure 1 is a lot more manageable to get through now. So you're probably going to enjoy the whole thing. But if you're playing it just the original ones, you're going to hate the entirety of Mass Effect 1. And you're going to hate the last 20 minutes of Mass Effect 3. But then, a few years ago, they came out with Mass Effect Andromeda, which is a spin-off game. It's like, this isn't tied to the trilogy. This is a new game in the universe. Just... What the fuck are you? There's this thing on my desk going on.
And answer my question of whether the ending of that game impacted the next game. If it's spin-off,
no, but it should have, because they overlooked something. And what they overlooked, because the title Andromeda it takes place in the Andromeda Galaxy. Our game takes place in the Milky Way, just the entire Milky Way. The premise is these ARC ships leave the Milky Way to go to Andromeda as like a mission to just find new planets to colonize. So technically, this game takes place like 600 years after the Mass Effect trilogy. What they overlooked is that you have to leave the galaxy to get to Andromeda. All of the Reapers came from outside of the galaxy, which means they should have come across those ships. So it's like...
they're counting on you to have picked red in Andromeda. Is what you're
the universe is a big place, Sharky.
Andromeda takes place between 2 and 3. So they're not gone yet.
It happened,
Maybe
I think...
just said, I'm blind. I suddenly lost the ability to see.
So,
from what I recall, when they send them out to the Andromeda Galaxy takes place just
right after
before
2.
the suicide mission?
Yeah, right before...
it's right after.
Between 2 and 3, so it's right after... It's after the suicide mission, but before the Reapers actually arrive. Which means they're coming in from dark space, where the ship is leaving into dark space.
Maybe they're like doing the Star Wars thing where they're in like hyper speed or whatever.
No, because the thing is, it's 600 years after, so it's like the ship is just traveling. It's not like jumping, it's just traveling. And I think in Mass Effect 3, it takes place like a year or 2 after 2. And because you see at the end of 2, the Reapers are just like slowly coming into the galaxy.
They're pulling up, yeah.
Like they're not hyper jumping, they're just like floating towards. So some time has passed. But I'm like, that ship shouldn't have made it, first of all. And also, this is like BioWare's like B team, I think, that did Andromeda. So the game itself is just bad. Like the animations are bad. Like the story is kind of lackluster in every way.
The development cycle for this game was awful, from what I recall.
And now
like not even any shade to like the B team of BioWare, but like the development cycle that they had to deal with was bullshit.
Yeah. And So it was just bad, and it was met with like, the gameplay is all right and all that, but at the same time, like the characters were uninteresting, the plot was uninteresting, and they haven't made a sequel to it, and I don't think they're going to. But then they announced earlier this year Mass Effect 4 is coming. And I'm like, now I have several questions with that, because which one of my choices is now considered your canon ending? Because in 2 of those, Shepard dies. So
You had only mentioned that Shepard died in Blue.
So technically, depending on if you get enough war assets in 3, which is enough, the whole plot is you trying to assemble a galaxy unified like fleet of ships to take back Earth. So every species like, hey, we're going to launch one unified effort. So the main counter to that in the game is war assets, and it's like once you hit this certain point, then the last mission to take back Earth will launch, and depending on like what happens on that number, it'll do stuff. But it's like if you have a high enough war assets after the destroy, there will be a small cutscene of Shepard's like chest plate like growing with like an exhale, indicating that he might have survived. But that's only if you have enough. That's not like a basic playthrough cutscene.
So what you're saying is they the creative team for Mass Effect 3 thought the franchise was finished after Mass Effect 3.
Yes.
And then the powers that be went, no.
They were like, we're going to make a spin-off.
There's more money to
They're
be
like,
made.
yeah, we're going to make a spin-off. And I'm like, the spin-off could have worked if, it had the technical know-how behind it and, the right writers and stuff like that. And then they were like, oh, that one didn't make a lot, so people want to go back to the original. And now it's like, you guys have a lot of reconciliation to do with that ending to make this one make any iota of sense. So,
interesting.
But
love when that shit happens.
And I'm like, God damn it, EA.
All you had to say was that it was an EA game, and now everything you've told me makes
everything lines up.
Sense.
It's like, I think like an entire episode could be dedicated to like how EA fucks up finales on things.
Oh God, I could talk about Dragon Age.
Yeah, it's like Dragon Age. They did like Dead Space. It was like Dead Space 1 and 2. It's basically Alien and Aliens, where it's like survival horror into like action horror. And then there were like 3, for no reason, make it co-op, make some missions only available if you're playing co-op, and put in weapon crafting so people have to spend money on microtransactions to get materials. And it's like,
we could do an entire episode about EA and microtransactions, and I can only talk about the sheer cost of The Sims 4 if you wanted all of the content.
The current thing that grinds my fucking gears about Dead Space, because I'm about to replay 2, is that the company that made Dead Space and made EA so much money with it were told, hey, we want you to make our next Battlefield game after they finished Dead Space 3. And it was like, okay, we'll do that. So they make Battlefield Hardline, which is like a cops and robbers Battlefield game. And it doesn't do well. So they close Visceral Studios, the guys that made Dead Space, because that's how EA does it. If they tell you to make a game that you're not familiar making, and then when it fails, they devour you. But then they were like, other studio, remake Dead Space. So it's like, you could have just kept Visceral open. Like,
they just had them making Dead Spaces.
But now, the current stuff that I'm seeing is like EA is looking to sell off because, like, apparently they're just like realizing how shitty of a company they are.
So you could say that Visceral Studios is now a dead space.
It is. The guys who... What's so funny, though, is that the guys who ran Visceral are making another, like, sci-fi horror game. But it has the weirdest tagline of it takes place in the PUBG universe. And I'm like, PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds is a battle royale game without a story. Are you telling me that this is actually just how the world is in this universe? Where people just get dropped off, where people just get dropped off on a random island to kill each other. And it's like from the universe of PUBG, and I'm like, there's a lot to unpack in that single tagline about the moral implications of
actually.
I hope so, but I'm looking forward to Callisto Project. It actually looks pretty good. And I know the guys, if it's the same guys that did Dead Space 1, I know they're going to knock it out of the park. So
from the world of PUBG just thinks of like featuring Dante for the Devil May Cry series.
it's so weird because it's like set in the PUBG like universe, and I'm like, okay, if that's the case, I want the game that shows what government took over to drop like prisoners into like a weird Soviet country to kill each other. Like show me the lead up to where PUBG got us.
Welcome to Dead Man Wonderland, the video game.
Gee, no kidding.
But yeah, I mean,
Oh.
it's still like it's been years. I think it was like 08 or 09 when Mass Effect 3 came out. It's been over a decade and it still pisses me off. It's like it's just one of those things where it's like every time I sit down to play Mass Effect again, I'm like, I'm loving every moment of this, but I know at the end I'm gonna just hate every second of that ending.
Mhm.
So it's just like, why am I even doing this? I know I'm gonna be pissed off. I know it's not gonna matter at the end. So
Mass Effect 3 had multiplayer though. That was pretty cool.
Mass Effect 3 did have multiplayer, and it was pretty fun.
It was enjoyable multiplayer. Yes.
Is Mass Effect the video game where you can fuck that one like I don't know how to describe this alien, but he's like vaguely buggy, like bug-like, but he's also ripped as fuck.
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure I was thinking of the correct game. I only know that because of TikTok.
He's the Turian, I believe.
We're talking about my boy Garrus.
Yes.
Yeah, Garrus!
So the cool thing is everybody in the game has a set personality. They just respawn differently to whether you do the Paragon, which is, you know, the good-natured actions, or the Renegade, which are the bad-natured actions. Where it's like you can either sometimes like Paragon be like talking to somebody and be like, hey man, I know what you're going through, you know, just we can work out together. And Renegade is like, you think you're the only one with a fucking problem? It's like that's kind of how the like morality goes. But Garrus is the only character whose personality shifts based on which you do more. He will act differently throughout the game based on how you act. Like he learns by watching you. So
he got it from you, okay?
No, that's the thing. Like Garrus learns by watching you.
I feel like we could do an entire episode on like moral systems, and like I know I could do an entire episode talking about romance systems because it's my favorite.
I only do one Renegade option in the entire run of Mass Effect because
to kick the guy out that window.
Okay, two. Because there is in the DLC there is a mission where there's a Shepard clone, and he's like holding on to like your little shuttle doors and everything as you're like flying through the giant space station that the game like centers around. And you have the option to like pull him up and I guess take him in, but the other option is just to kick him off the off the thing because you're the original Shepard. But the other
really smart to kick him off.
The other Renegade option is there's this like bullshit throwaway villain in 3 who had like no reason to be there other than just to be a new villain. And the end of his boss fight, you get the single Renegade option. And the way that this scene plays out is Shepard dodges away from his sword and like stabs him in the side to kill him. And the Renegade option, all it does is add Shepard like just normal hand backhanding the sword to break it. Like as it's coming down before doing the exact same stabbing. And I was like, so you just did it there to make it spicy. It's like it was just you just spun around, broke the sword. Yeah, you're just like, I'm gonna break your fucking sword in my hand. So
you can't teabag him in the game because that doesn't exist in Mass Effect for some reason.
Yeah.
So that's the next best thing.
But yeah,
I learned how to play video games in 2010.
But yeah, so it's like, man, I think I'm overdue for a Mass Effect playthrough. I might buy the Legendary Edition if I play through it again though, just to get all the stuff. But yeah, that ending still pisses me off. So
that's fair.
Also, Dead Space 3's ending fucking pisses me off because it sets up. It can either set up a Dead Space 4 or with better explanation, it could just instill more dread, but it doesn't provide any like context to what is happening. So
do you think they did that on purpose?
Oh, definitely. They probably wanted to leave it open ending because at best, if it is the finale, it's, oh look, we were never going to beat these things. Like this is a power beyond like human comprehension. But the other thing is like, oh hey look, 4 is, hey, we're going to go save the Earth from these things. But the thing is, that ending is at the end of a DLC. Not even the base game. The base game ends, honestly, with no ending. There is no ending to Dead Space 3 before the DLC.
This might be a spicy hot take, but I think it's the only correct take. And I understand that I feel like modern times DLC, especially like in that case, it seems like the DLC was kind of important to the plot, and it was either something where the production company or whoever was making the game was probably like pushed to put a game out before it was done so they could make money and be like, oh, we can microtransaction in your true ending. EA, yeah, EA being EA.
Was it EA Sports is in the DLC?
It's in the DLC. I feel like this is to video game companies, like big companies like EA and Bethesda and I don't know any any large
Activision
Gearbox,
Blizzard,
Activision,
who's currently in a lawsuit.
We don't speak of them.
It's like they're in a lawsuit. It's like they're in a lawsuit. EA is trying to sell off. Just let's just get rid of them. Just please get rid of them.
So to these big video game companies, from me, totally a video game expert, let your damn game developers tell a complete story without making it DLC, because then the people who only buy the full game get a full fucking game. And then people who want to have microtransactions for additional content, you can make bonus content. Like, at least with Borderlands 1, I got a full video game without any DLC. And all the DLC is just bonus adventures I get to go on with my character in that same universe.
I think that's...
Do they feel a little disjointed? Yes.
Yes. I feel like that is the best way to do it. Like, complete the game and sell it as it is. If it's a game that has, like, online capabilities, like if you're playing with other players and stuff like that, the only acceptable stuff I could see is just, like, cosmetics. Like, if you just want to look cooler, you know, you should be able to buy something that can customize, but it's never like, you have to pay for this map. You have to pay to have access to these weapons. You know, it's like
pass for
season passes are also kind of the worst things to have in the games recently. But Dark Souls does their kind of DLC a little more acceptably, where it's like the full game is the full game. And then their DLC will come out where it's like Dark Souls 2 or 3 was like, here's another world. It's like the world, the painted world, which is like referenced in the games and all that, and they have a history in the games where it's like, here's a full, you know, story set in that location. Or it's like with Horizon, they had their Frozen Wilds or something come out, where it's like, here's a whole new region, where it's like a whole new story, a whole new region. Here's basically like half of a full game for you.
They did that with Fallout 3 with the pit.
Yep.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, Fallout 3 has like the swamp DLC.
Okay.
They have
Dead Money.
Yeah, they have like all the DLCs that are like, here's a storyline in a region.
Operation Anchorage was my favorite one. Mothership Zeta, probably
but
my second.
For companies to be like, buy these map packs on this like content drop, buy these things. Like, if it's like, what was it, a few years ago, Call of Duty was like, here's the game, and then 2 months down the line it's like, here's our first map pack, which is like 3 or 4 maps, like a new costume or something, and like some guns. And I'm like, just include that in the main thing. It's like, because the thing is, a lot of these are re-released. You have these already.
I think we could probably do an entire episode about DLC, because I would love to go in depth on how the fucking Sims 4's DLC works, because that shit is absolutely fucking bonkers. But I think that would be best for its own episode.
Yeah, I could definitely get into.
I like that we've gotten like 6 ideas for future episodes in this one episode.
Yeah, I'll have to watch the video back and write them
all
down and add them to our
feels like talking about anything from EA just leads down a rabbit hole of just bullshit practices.
Yep.
I really hope they sell off and we don't have to deal with them ever again. So. But it's like, Gosh, see, my Mass Effect pisses me off. It really does. Between 1, 2,
Still
and
love the
3, I
Borderlands.
sunk like so many hours into those games though, and then it's like there wasn't even a boss fight. It's just now I'm here, and now you're telling me to pick one of these 3 options after everything. It's like,
I'm
I
sure
mean,
there's probably an article with like Kotaku or something where like the writer was like, we really wanted players to understand that it's not like wars don't often come down to like a big fight, but it's the small decisions that you make that can have like
but those
the
small
biggest
decisions aren't
impact.
factored
Blah blah
in.
blah.
They aren't factored in to pick a color. It's
Yeah.
just, it's like thing is like Mass Effect. The thing that gets me is Mass Effect 1 and 2 had a side plot through like all the side missions involving like dark matter energy. It was like this it was like this just one storyline. It's like, hey, we can probably use this to develop weapons and stuff like that. And it's just like throughout the games, it's like this dark matter research. So I'm like, if I follow the storyline, this might lead to like a weapon in 3. You know, something that's like, hey, we can make something here that could fight against the Reapers. But that's like, no, that storyline's just dropped. And it's even mentioned in like one of the side quests. It's like the Reapers fear dark matter energy. So it's like, you're not building on this? It's like, why are you not building on this? It's like, so it's just, there's so much like left on the table for just like pick a color. And I'm like, I just don't think they knew how to make everything mean everything at the end. But
They
man,
they
it was
they were
disappointing.
they were sprinting on the end, and they had the baton. They were ready to pass it off, and then they just
And
fell
then
ass over tea kettle.
what gets me is that they put out 3, and then they put out DLC for 3, which takes place during the main story. So it's like, if you beat the game and then these DLCs come out, technically all this takes place before the ending of the game.
Well, of course they couldn't put it in after because they shoehorned you into 3 decisions based on like. This is probably nitpicky. How come the colors are like red, blue, and green?
Yes.
Why not just stick with the primary colors? Why green? Like you
I
had
don't
2
know.
primaries and then you have to go to a secondary? Like that's what I got tripped up on. I was like, there has to be something to that green. Green's probably the quote unquote correct choice because why would you put 2
It's
primaries?
technically the good ending. It's the one where Shepard survives,
Because it's
and
green.
all the organics in the galaxy have their DNA rewritten to also be kind of bioorganic or
Mecha squirrels.
biomechanical. So they're part machine also. So it's
Mecha
like,
squirrels.
hey, look, since nobody in the galaxy is organic truly, we don't have to fulfill our purpose and wipe out every civilization. So here's all of this knowledge from all the previous civilizations. So now we can make a better galaxy. And it's like, this is the one ending that actually kind of is technically the good ending because Shepard's alive and everybody's alive and the galaxy is now prospering. But at the same time, why not just tie this into the story and make it the true ending? Why give a choice? It's like, why not just build to this ending? Like, I'm just like, the more I think about it, the more pissed off it gets me. We have to stop. It's like,
We gotta stop. We gotta stop for your blood pressure. You're already mad about Destiny before we
Oh.
started recording.
Yeah,
So
I came into
it's
Destiny.
fine.
We're on the last
I'll
damage
piss off
phase.
the
We're on the
Sharky.
last damage phase of a dungeon, and my team gets booped. We fall off the stage, and it's just, I already came in here salty, and I'm talking about Mass Effect, and now it's like it's making it
Go
worse.
get some water. Put down your sodium levels, and we'll end this episode.
So we'll close the episode there before Sharky like fully says a gamer word on our podcast.
Just the was it just the just John's getting upset. Just
So if you liked our communal ranting here, throw us a follow, subscribe. Apparently, there's a lot of people who are watching us and not subscribing. That's kind of weird, but you know what? Sometimes it shows up in your recommended. Fine. In the description below, you can find all of our various socials that you can follow. If you are so inclined, you get to see me and Sharky complain about wrestling sometimes. And I usually have D&D takes, and Haley has very intellectual takes, and sometimes he talks about
On
Stardew.
what? Intellectual
And-
takes when?
And this was kind of our like get back into the groove episode after everybody was sick last week and Haley's finally back, so we'll get back into the groove things.
We'll try to be more structured next time.
Yeah.
But other than that, I'm Decavolty, been the return of AnxietyLasagna, and we've got SharkyHat, and this is the Without Context podcast. Bye.
See you guys.